We are in the middle of some interesting things, and I think we should talk about one of them. That would be a very cool idea, wouldn't it? I don't really need to focus on it. Clean it up. The rainfall. You know, like the rain should. So it really started. Well, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the topic of our discussion that we're going to have. First of all, a little update. Maybe I'll try to do those before every little video now. Day 3, I think. Yeah, day 3 officially of writing. Not in a row, of course, because the reason that I can't do this every fucking day is because I work in retail. And when you work in retail and the fucking faggy holiday times are coming. Oh my god. So I've been really looking into more of, we could just call it the Catholic understanding of heaven and hell. You know, Satan, Jesus, and you know, coming back and that whole thing, right? It was triggered God. I'm gonna try not to do that so much. It was triggered by a book that I'm about a little over halfway through called Satan, Prince of This World, written by a guy named William Guy Carr. And he was a, what was he? I don't know what his rank was. I just know he was in the Canadian military. He was in World War I and World War II. Through his life, he started to unravel what he considered to be the Luciferian conspiracy and the synagogue of Satan, which is taking control of the world, right? That's the people pretending to be Jews, but are actually Zionists. It's like that kind of stuff. I don't know how much you might know about it, but it's pretty interesting. And let's give the description in the video here. Just do as much justice as possible. This book, completed posthumously, however the fuck you say that, he died, posthumously, whatever, by the author's son, exposes a Luciferian conspiracy and the synagogue of Satan as the driving force behind the world revolutionary movement. The author insists Lucifer is a real spiritual force active in the world, who is worshipped by many of the most powerful people in this world, including those who run Hollywood, the music industry, central banks, large corporations, intelligence agencies, universities, and some sections of the military. First of all, I'm not here to tell you this is true or not, because I can't prove anything. This is just this guy. I mean, he was inside the world a bit, you know, when he talked to high-end officials. He's in the military, he knew generals, this and that. I don't know, why would he just make all this up? I don't know how much is delusional, how much is accurate. Again, not the point of this video, but I wanted to bring that up. It's crazy. If I found out it's all true, I'd be like, yeah, that doesn't shock me. Why wouldn't it be true? You know what I mean? Like, the way this fucking world is. But as I was listening to it, because I listen to it while I'm working, it's very tough. It's tough to hear when he goes into certain aspects of humanity that are being infiltrated by this synagogue of Satan and this demonic entering into the souls of mankind, and through that I started to feel fear from listening to this. And the fear that I have is this. So let's say this is all 100% real. Like, follow me on it. Is why the fear. Don't, because I know sometimes I'm like, well, you got to remember this and that. Like, no, stop. Just listen to the avenue that this took me down first. Listen to this fucked up story about the world being taken over by Satan and his princes of the world. The fear I had was the damnation of those I care about. If indeed he is like capturing people's souls for eternity to damn them, I have a hard time believing that, but if it's true, I'm thinking of all the ones that I care about, and I'm like, man, I don't, hold on. But I was thinking about these people that I care about, and like, they're accidentally walking into this world. They're buying into this thing. They don't even realize it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're participating in this satanic new world, and it's stealing from them their covenant with God, or their, God's redeeming them, but they don't know about it. And I'm like, that's very unfair. And not in a sense of looking for fairness, but in a sense of, is that how far free will extends when it comes to God's control over, like, you guys have free will to do what you want, but if you fuck up anyway in the path, you're fucked. Those are high stakes, especially if you're ignorant. So I wonder of that. I wonder that idea of, is ignorance our own fault too? I kind of in believing that it might be so, because you can choose to be ignorant. That goes along with my rhetoric I've been saying on a lot of these videos. But the fear that I have for the loved ones that are in my life, so my friends and my family and stuff, I always sit down with those thoughts and say, let's pretend. If you find out that certain people, either all of them or some of them, it doesn't fucking matter, one of them is going to be eternally damned because of the choices that they make, what would you do if you had the ability to control yourself the way you do now, mind and body? I would probably try to sacrifice myself for them, because I'd have to. I'm like, they didn't know, it's not their fault. I will take this burden, even though it'll fucking suck if it's all true. I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, I have to. There's no other choice. You can't just if you find out someone's gonna be burned or damned or whatever the fucking rhetoric is when it comes to hell, you would sacrifice yourself for them, deserving or not. And the idea of that is the obvious first portion of that idea is you don't want them to suffer unnecessarily. Like, can you imagine someone you care about suffering in pain? Now, I do understand that some of these concepts were born out of this medieval, going into this Renaissance, going into this, what do we call it? Humanitarian era, going into the whole weird shit going on during the 1600s with the Puritans and all that. I know this was formed by man. I know that these concepts were kind of established by a human being for greater punishment, right? It's a human idea. Now, what I don't understand is what comes to us, like these ideas that can come to our minds about how we interpret this information. Like, is it just purely a thought that was born out of this singular person that you are, and you have this subjective view that is like a lens, and you take all in from here, and you are able to discern it with some sort of mechanism that you consider to be like the compass of morals, or whatever you want to describe it as, like what you think is right and wrong. And from that, you're the one who defers what this, and that are. And from that sense, it's all about what sort of justification you find when it comes to right and wrong to determine what punishment should be. Is that something that's born within us purely, or is that something that comes from another, from a faraway realm, another world, another plane? I don't know what you want to call it. The place where this spiritual essence comes from. I know that it can be hand in hand. I'm not questioning the idea of that. I'm bringing this question up to go to another point. I understand that it can be both these elements of man and spirit. But there's this intermediary part. So there's you, which is mankind, and then there's this spiritual, angels, gods, fucking, I don't know, whatever, you know what I'm saying, like on the spiritual level, there's that side. But what's the dividing line there? Time? Reality? You know, like, you know, we can go into the nitty gritty of it. That's not necessarily the point that I want to try to make. What my thinking is, remember our Paradise Lost reading that we're doing, that I'm supposed to be doing again? I'm very timid to tread into that. Very timid to kind of tiptoe into the fucking Paradise Lost. On a lot of different faces, a lot of fronts, if you want to call it that. There's a lot of different reasons why I'm a little leery to dive into that book. None of a superstitious nature necessarily. Like, I don't feel like, oh, I will invoke something. No, it's like, if you give, like the song, which is not necessarily what it's about, but it reminds me, sympathy for the devil. If you give an ear to the devil, if you give an understanding to him, or a sympathetic ear, or a little bit of empathy, you know, just to like, well, how did he become what he becomes? Does that necessarily invite a darkness in? How easy is it to fall down the destructive path? So it's like, when we all look at an object, when we all look at a situation, no matter what it is, we all kind of form our own points on it. But most of us will form points that someone else has formed because we like, oh, I agree with what he says, I'm gonna also, right? And that could be misused and all that stuff. And the point of that is this is self. It's really hard to identify what is self at times. What is you and what is another person's idea that you've taken and manipulated, you know? But when we look at something as simple as the Masonic Order of Masons. Now, I've read some stuff about the Masons, from Masons, right? In that book by William Guy Carr, he talks a lot about Albert Pike, and this man who is a priest of the Luciferian synagogue, or whatever, is what he's claiming. And he's slowly trying to adapt these Luciferian ideas into society. And eventually these Masonic people will be killed off because, you know, they're pawns right now, but when they know too much, they'll be destroyed. You know, there's a whole thing about it. But I read his own book about the Scottish Rite Freemasonry and each degree and stuff. Now, you could argue, like the book says, he knowingly is like, no, we're serving Satan. Fuck everything. Satan's different than Lucifer, but we're serving both of them, kind of thing. It's crazy, right? But then you wonder about the people that are inside of the order, all the way down, which made mention in this book, that you can participate in a satanic instance, but not have any knowledge of it if you are spiritually unaware. How terrifying is that, to find out that something you've been tracing for a long time may indeed be something that's considered very evil. Which goes beyond subjective kind of views, which goes beyond like what I think is right and wrong, what you think is right and wrong. It goes way beyond that. It's like ethereal. It's like rigid right and wrong. How far can you fall down that path and not even realize it? Like, you could be following what you think is God for years, and all of a sudden you find out it might be Satan. Like, how scary is that? You know, we've cartoonized Satan as this kind of like red-faced fucking incredibly like corny evil guy. But I don't know, you know? As I sit here, I myself don't even know if I necessarily believe in Satan and hell. I really don't know. I am so conflicted on that. Very conflicted. And I really want to say, like, to prove a point of my beliefs, but I can't lie to you. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what exists and what doesn't. I feel a fool, you know? I feel like I'm wandering this realm and there's so much to be understood. And there's a lot of people in this very realm that do or claim to know things. Oh, trust me, I know, I studied it. Or I just know because it feels right in my heart. You know, and there's like groups here that claim knowledge so much, and I'm always, for the longest time, I was so envious of these people that they're just like, oh, trust me, I know what this is that, you're doing this, and this is what happens with death, and this is life, and the realms, and all this. I'm like, I used to think like, damn, I am retarded. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing it's just like, that's a coping thing. There's not that many people that are willing to just say, I don't fucking know. And no matter like how much I study, think, and learn, and teach, I'm not gonna know. I'm never gonna be like, I stumbled on it. I figured it out. I know what Satan is. Like, you could confront me with all the truths you want, but I'm still gonna be like, I don't know. Because that's you, you know? So, going back to with Paradise Lost, giving a viewpoint of Satan and his fall. Now, we're only book 1 into it. And we're only just discovering what lies beneath the surface. And it's terrifying. Just the prospect of it. I don't want to say it's cartoonish, the wickedness, but I want to say that it's the prospect of it scares me just to think about. Because you can start getting into like demonic entities, you can start getting into spirits that follow you. What's that word? Fucking, I forgot the name. Guardian angels and stuff like that. You can get into all that stuff. And that's fine that people can and interpret it and discern what things are, but man, I just always will find myself sitting on the edge of the unknown. So then I go back to the book. The way in which I write this story, accidental at first, now purposefully, mirrors my own very life. The journey that Eris must take symbolically mirrors the one that I will take. There's so much unknown. I get to certain portions of the book and it's like, I know where you gotta go, kid, but I don't really know exactly what you're gonna find when you get there. Because the time that you get there may be different. The time that you receive this information, I can't tell you how you will interpret it based on the life that you previously lived. I will have this book here, and I will tell you things in this book, but the way you interpret what I'm saying, the words haven't changed, is what I cannot control. So in many aspects, I feel like in my book what I call the Forgotten King. He is this higher entity that is kind of like a god to the beings of the book. And I work through him. I use him as the tool, right? If he's the god to some of these beings on this world, well then he will be the conduit to which through I work. I myself, through him, he through the characters. It's hard to keep straight in my fucking head. And remember these elements. But when I give this information, I know, you know, when we talk about in those videos, I know how the world came to be. I know what's at stake. I know about the Aeon. I know about the Titans. I know about the spiritual war that is at stake. And I know and understand about the Whisper and Dove and These. All these higher entities that are conflicting over this realm that exists outside. But it's hard to know how to give that information to a character. You have this knowledge that you've gained, You wrote something, you made something, and it came from God himself. But it's really hard for you to know how to give that to another. The process of writing for me is not... So I know of a couple people that are writing from the perspective of them. My life, what I learned. This is something outside. These people explore their lives that are writing their books, but they explore them through the avenue of self. I am the conduit of this knowledge, if you want to call it that. What I am doing to tell you how to show you that it's a little different is I am working through a construct. That construct is guiding conduits, which those conduits are a fractured nature of oneself inside an imaginary world that needs to be fixed. Yet that imaginary world exists inside of a plane that is in turmoil, because that plane has found itself outside of the known universe. So in my mind, I'm saying it's not as easy as just like lay out your story and write it out. Take notes and study what other writers have done and use it for your own gains. It's larger than that, because what I'm playing with, what I'm using as the setting of this tool, is a realm in which I've made up in my mind that now exists in other people's minds. And what I'm trying to do on the fucking outside in this world, this material world that we live in, is access a dream realm through words. Those words, evocation, the magic, are the objects in which I can use in such a right combination to open the door to allow me through. I know that might seem complicated, and I don't want it to be, but that's how it is to me. And so when I sit down, I'm working on book 2 right now. I got the fucking typewriter right there. I'm 2 pages in of day 3 writing, right? I write 6 pages a day. It's incredibly difficult. And there's a leeriness to walk into it. To like, you know, you could say you don't want to fuck it up because it's so fragile. Or you could say like you don't want to do injustice to it and all that. But in a sense, I don't want to invite some sort of essence or spirit, if you want to call it that, being in here when it's not supposed to. In some sense, and I know this is going to sound fucking crazy, okay? And this ties back to that book I'm reading. Bear with me, okay? Like, I'm going to really try to make this as simple as possible. In some sense, what I want to do is take aspects of what is God, what is spirit, what is emotion, what is angels or demons or things of that nature. What are these elements? In the world that I find myself in, when they peer into it, how can I decipher what those things are? I give them name. I give them identification. I give them sort of, like I sort them out. Take those things, those ideas, which need human involvement. This is just theories, okay? I'm not saying this is all true. This is just how my mind works. These beings, these gods, spirits, emotions, angels, devils, all that, whatever you want to call it, they need a human interaction to give them power. They need it. At least here they do. Well, what if I take the essence of these things, place them inside of what we could say is allegories and metaphors and idea concepts of like, oh, that's kind of a thing there. Like you were saying this, but you really meant that. You know, shit like that. Allegories and metaphors. To trap, in a sense, the essence of what these are and give them sort of this new place in which they can be born into. And from that point in the rebirth inside of this other realm, the book in and of itself is outside of the universe. It takes place in the most unknown of the unknown, outside of everything that ever was. What if they need to go back there? So in the book, they themselves are the Titans, are the Aeon, the Whisper, Gaia, all these higher elements and essences of beings that are greater than we are. They've been given new names to slowly be diminished and destroyed through these conduits that are a conduit of the highest of the high, at least in the sense of the Aeon. And from that point, it captures itself back. So in a sense, you place in there these beings and extract from it yourself. The little characters that are in my book are fractured versions of myself that I want to unravel and find again. Like parts of my psyche, parts of my memory, parts of my being. I'm trying to refine them. These will give them back to the Forgotten King, which is what I call him. And he himself will give it back to me. I place in here the darkness and the evil that I've discovered in here, and I'm pulling from it all the good for myself. The book can be read for another person, and it can be enjoyed in that sense, but in reality, the book is trying to take myself from the darkness that I found myself, I have dove into. I don't really know how much sense that can make to somebody, and at times it doesn't make much sense to me either. But when I look at it, there's a lot of fear. I don't sometimes know how to tread into it because I don't know who I am when I'm beginning to write. Every day it seems as if another version of yourself is born. Another version of yourself is inhibited or hindered or engaged, or whatever other aspect of the changing of your mind can be, positive or negative. And we go back to the whole manifestation and unmanifestation. That can be emotions too. And the main reason that I chose to write like this is because I believe, and I'm not saying this is right, but I think, I should say, my theory is, I think that our emotions are spirits, and we're vessels to those spirits. Maybe not every single human being, I don't know, but I know for me they are. At least it feels that way. I could be wrong, which is okay. But that's what it feels like. And you invite them in. Not necessarily like the manifestation of self in this moment can be another spirit, but some sort of intense emotion that can be happening seems to be another. That's why it takes you. That's why you get in a fit of rage or sorrow or happiness. I don't know what's going on in this world. And most days I don't even know who I am or what I'm doing. You know how many times I sit down in front of that typewriter and I just ask myself, like, what the fuck are you doing? What is this? What's happening right now? Is this us? Are we doing what's right? Most of the time I can't ever answer that. It's this journey. It's this crazy journey that I'm on that I made up for myself. I'll tie it back to the book and I'll tie it back to my first topic. Because of that, a lot of the times with my characters, I know the general outlook of what they might need to do. I don't know how they're going to get there though. I don't know who they're going to be when they get there. I kind of know what's going to happen to them in a huge sense. Like as much as saying like, and I will get married and then I will eventually have kids and then I will get a house. Like I know like the big details. I don't know how they're going to accomplish all those things. I don't know what their mind's going to be once they get those objects. I don't understand how that's going to shape them to their next objective, but I know their general objectives. That can be terrifying. It's almost like riding blind in a sense. And it's really difficult to know how to judge right from wrong and how to know in which you are sat in this world. So let's go back to the beginning, talking about Satan. It's hard to know when you've, and what you're doing, so for instance what I'm doing, is right or wrong. Is what I'm doing demonic, evil, bad, or is it not? Everyone will have an opinion on that matter, but like when I talk to myself and I say, like, what do you think you're doing? Is this book good or bad? Is the further attainment of knowledge satanic and bad or good? We're talking about eating the apple here, the knowledge of God. The more we start to try and unravel what is and what isn't, is that going down the dark path? It doesn't feel like that, right? But what if it is? That's what I fear, outside of the people I love being burned, or cursed or whatever. What if I myself am going down a path and I have no clue it's dark? What do I do about that? How do I know how to define that? I could sit and meditate. I could try to find myself, and I could really listen to whatever spirit comes to me or myself. And believe me, I try. I really do. I listen to my heart. Always. Always. Heart before anything. I trust in myself and the avenues that I may venture down. When I feel a being or another, whatever you want to call it, entity, I don't just necessarily trust it and go like, that's the good stuff and let's go. Like, I'm nervous. The most biggest one is Sineu, is that one I told you about, the deer god thing, remember? I don't remember how many videos that was. I'm going to follow that a little bit. I'm nervous though. I don't know if it's good or bad. I can't tell. By all rights, outwardly, you would think it's bad. It hasn't said one nice thing. It hasn't said much at all, actually. It just it looks menacing. Let me say it that way. It manifests itself menacingly. But it hasn't said a word. And I don't actively follow it. Like, well, let's go pray to it. Let's go find, I don't know. I'm just here, moving forward. And if it materializes itself to me again, we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's so hard to know what is right and wrong. It can be. It can be incredibly hard. We're also vastly different from one another. We've all had so many different experiences, subjective life's traumas, triumphs, and all that. We've had so much different between each other. But what I think about is how there's something slightly similar to us all. When I think about all of our collective trauma, darkness, going down the bad path, what I want to do for myself is unravel just how it happened to be that way in the first place. Which is why I gave the book the name The Forgotten. The series is called The Forgotten. Each book is a forgotten something. Forgotten sacrifice, forgotten revelation, forgotten guilt, or some shit. I don't know. How do you find all those elements of yourself? You dive deep enough. What can you surface in yourself that may or may not help another? It's tough. It's really tough. A lot of the times I'll sit with my book, stare at it on a screen or on a page or whatever, because you're editing or you're looking at things, or you're working stuff around, or just writing things. An author could tell you, you're just staring at it and just trying to make sense of it. From, is this right? Does this feel right? Am I describing this well enough? All the way to the order in which you are receiving information and all this shit. Now, what I think you're doing, at least in this term, I can't say for like nonfiction, or is that what you call it? Like things that are real. When it comes to fictitious stories, you're unraveling a deep-seated psychological story of self that's enriched by a world of fantasy all around you, because it's based in a real life occurrence called escapism. When I went away and watched Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, what did I take with me and what did I leave there? And how can I extract that again from my book? When I went out and did anything in my life, what did I leave behind me? What memory, feeling, expression, view, any kind of positive or negative or neutral, doesn't matter. What did I leave? Because the longer it sits back there, the more I identify myself with it. I am this, I am that. This happened to me, so I am this. That happened to me, I am that. You keep leaving it behind you, you identify with it. You need, and again, that's what the book's about, you need to go back in whatever way you know how and pluck yourself from those events to bring them back to the now so you are whole again. The only way I know how to do that is writing a fantasy book. But that's the whole point. At least I think so. I could be very wrong about all this. And if I was, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's cut from that. Let's just cut ourselves off of that stream of consciousness. We could go further, man, but I don't know. We'll go on all day about this shit. What should I call this video? Okay, so it'd be like Fear of Darkness, Absolved in Light, underneath it, a journey through, okay, I'll figure it out. You'll see.